We live in a world obsessed with self-improvement, always trying to fix, optimize, and control who we are. But what if the very act of trying to fix yourself is the thing holding you back? True freedom and growth come when we stop resisting what we already are and begin to see ourselves clearly. Many of us live with the quiet, persistent belief that something is fundamentally wrong with us. We wake up every day thinking, I need to fix this, or I'm not enough. And yet this belief is, in essence, an illusion, a story created by the mind, reinforced by society, and carried as if it were truth. Alan Watts often reminded us that the very notion of being broken implies separation, a duality that doesn't exist at the core of our being. You are not fractured, you are not incomplete, you are already whole. The problem arises when we mistake our thoughts, emotions, or behaviors for the totality of who we are. Feeling fear, anger, insecurity, or sadness does not mean you are broken. It only means you are alive and human. These experiences are like clouds passing through the vast sky of your consciousness. They appear, linger, and eventually drift away. But when we believe these clouds define us, we begin the futile task of fixing the sky itself. Our society amplifies this illusion. Everywhere we look, we are told to improve, to optimize, to be faster, smarter, thinner, happier. Self-help books, motivational speeches, and social media highlight what is wrong with us more than what is already perfect. And in trying to meet these external standards, we overlook the truth within, that our essence is intact, resilient, and complete. The act of constantly seeking to fix ourselves often obscures the simple beauty of being, and we miss the very present moment where life is already unfolding perfectly. To see through this illusion, one must begin with awareness. Notice the voice inside that whispers, I need to be better, and observe it without judgment. Recognize that this is merely a thought, a passing reflection, not the truth of your being. This subtle shift in perception is revolutionary. It releases the pressure, dissolves the tension, and allows you to rest in the reality of yourself as you are. Wholeness is not something to achieve. It is always already here, waiting for recognition. When you begin to embrace this truth, life transforms. Actions no longer arise from fear or self-rejection, but from curiosity, play, and engagement with the world. You begin to see that growth, learning, and creativity are not about repairing a broken self. They are expressions of the life already coursing through you. True freedom emerges not from fixing, but from knowing that you are complete exactly as you are. So, the next time you feel the urge to fix yourself, pause, breathe. Ask, am I truly broken, or am I whole and alive right now? Notice the release that follows. Feel the relief of dropping the story that has bound you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever felt broken, only to realize you were whole all along? Share your experiences and reflections in the comments below. Once we accept the illusion of brokenness, the mind often moves naturally into another trap, self-judgment. This is the quiet critic inside that constantly evaluates every thought, feeling, or action and labels it as good or bad, right or wrong. It is a relentless voice whispering that you should be different, that you should perform better, feel more, or think differently. But the irony is that this judgment itself is another layer of the very illusion that you are broken. Self-judgment keeps us imprisoned in a story of inadequacy, distracting us from the simple experience of being. Think of it like this. You are standing in a beautiful garden, surrounded by vibrant colors, sunlight, and the gentle rustle of leaves. Yet your mind is focused entirely on a single patch of soil that seems imperfect. You forget to notice the rest of the garden, the wonder, the growth, the life that is already present. Self-judgment functions in the same way. It narrows your perception, turning attention away from your wholeness and towards a selective view that constantly seeks flaws. And because the mind has an almost compulsive habit of wanting to correct and improve, it fuels endless cycles of, I must fix this, or I am not enough. Alan Watts reminds us that the mind is a tool, not the master. Thoughts of judgment are like waves on the ocean. They rise and fall, but the ocean itself remains untouched. The task, then, is not to silence these judgments, but to recognize them as passing phenomena rather than truth. Observe them with curiosity, without adding layers of shame or guilt. You might notice that each critical thought is rooted in a desire to control or predict life, a desire that is both natural and unnecessary. Awareness dissolves the power of self-judgment and opens a space where self-acceptance can flourish. The deeper truth here is subtle yet profound. There is no perfect version of yourself to achieve. Life is not a puzzle to solve, but a river to flow with. Every mistake, hesitation, or emotion is not a sign of failure. It is an expression of being alive. By clinging to self-judgment, we attempt to force life into our limited expectations, and in doing so, we block the natural, spontaneous rhythm of our existence. True freedom, as Watts emphasizes, comes from stepping out of this cycle of criticism and stepping into the awareness that you are enough just as you are. When you begin to release self-judgment, everything changes. Decisions are made with clarity instead of fear. Relationships deepen because you are fully present, and creativity flows because there is no inner censor. Life becomes less about performing for yourself or others, and more about engaging with the world in an authentic, wholehearted way. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How has self-judgment affected your life? And have you ever felt the relief of letting it go? Share your reflections in the comments. One of the most subtle and persistent illusions we carry is the belief that we can control life, our thoughts, our emotions, our circumstances, even the people around us. From the moment we are young, we are taught to plan, to strive, and to shape our lives as though reality itself will bend to our will. But here is the quiet truth that Alan Watts reminds us. Life is not a machine to be fixed, nor a problem to be solved. Life is a dance, a flowing river, and the more we struggle to grasp it, the more we miss the beauty of simply moving with it. We cling to control in hopes of avoiding discomfort. We try to manage our image, predict outcomes, and force others to act in ways that suit us. Yet in doing so, we create tension within ourselves, as though we are perpetually holding back the tide with our bare hands. This struggle is exhausting, and the harder we try to maintain it, the more life slips through our fingers. The irony is that control is an illusion precisely because the universe is not bound by our intentions. It is alive, dynamic, and unpredictable. Watts often speaks of life as a dance or a piece of music. Just as a musician does not attempt to stop the melody or force it into rigid patterns, we cannot impose our will on the unfolding of existence. True freedom comes from recognizing that control is not the answer. When we stop fighting against the natural flow, we experience life more fully. We stop overthinking our mistakes, we release the grip of perfectionism, and we allow ourselves to respond to each moment with presence instead of anxiety. This is not to say that action or effort is useless. Discipline, choices, and responsibility all have their place. But there is a fundamental difference between acting with awareness and trying to dominate reality out of fear. Awareness allows us to engage creatively with life, while control traps us in loops of tension, judgment, and frustration. When you accept that uncertainty is not your enemy, but a natural condition of existence, you open the door to spontaneity, curiosity, and true growth. The deeper insight here is that life itself does not need our constant interference to be meaningful. Each moment carries its own intelligence, its own rhythm, and its own beauty. The act of letting go of control is not giving up. It is stepping into a space where trust in life replaces the illusion of certainty. From this space, decisions are clearer, relationships are more authentic, and personal growth happens organically without the relentless pressure of trying to force outcomes. How has the need to control affected your life? Have you ever experienced a moment when letting go led to unexpected peace or insight? Share your experiences in the comments below. Dr. One of the most quiet yet persistent forces that keep us far. True inner peace is self-judgment. From the moment we become aware of ourselves, we begin measuring, comparing our thoughts, actions, and even our feelings against imagined standards. I should be this, I must not feel that, I am not enough unless. These silent whispers shape much of our daily suffering. Alan Watts often reminds us that life is not a test, and yet we treat it as one, weighing ourselves with invisible scales, constantly marking ourselves as pass or fail. The irony is profound. The more we judge ourselves, the more we separate from the very life we wish to embrace. Self-judgment creates a tension, a distance between our present experience and our acceptance of it. We critique the way we think, the way we feel, and even the way we love, as though the richness of life depends on approval we hope to earn from some inner authority. Yet, in reality, this inner authority is nothing more than a collection of past fears, social conditioning, and fleeting comparisons. It does not know what is truly best for our growth. It only knows what it fears or misunderstands. Watts teaches that we are not broken. We are complete unfolding beings. To judge ourselves harshly is to resist the natural flow of our own existence. Life is not a static object to be perfected. It is a living, breathing process. Every thought, every emotion, every failure, every triumph is part of the dance. When we label ourselves as not good enough or failing, we block the very energy that allows creativity, insight, and joy to emerge. Self-judgment also has a corrosive effect on relationships. When we harshly critique ourselves, we often project that same judgment onto others, seeking to control, correct, or critique them. The chain reaction begins with the inner voice but spreads outward, creating tension, miscommunication, and conflict. By learning to soften our inner dialogue, we not only liberate ourselves but also open the door to more genuine, compassionate connections. The practice of noticing judgment without attachment is transformative. It is not about forcing positivity or denying mistakes. It is about observing, accepting, and letting life flow through us without unnecessary resistance. Each time we pause and recognize the weight of self-criticism, we take a step toward freedom. We begin to trust the natural unfolding of life, allowing mistakes to become teachers and imperfections to become expressions of our humanity rather than reasons for shame. How often do you catch yourself judging your thoughts or actions? Can you remember a time when letting go of self-criticism brought you clarity or peace? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's explore together how releasing self-judgment can transform not just our lives, but the lives of those around us. One of the deepest sources of our suffering comes from the illusion that we can control life. We plan, we strategize, we try to manipulate outcomes as if the universe were a machine, responding predictably to our every effort. Alan Watts reminds us that life is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be experienced. And yet, the human mind constantly seeks security and control, believing that if we just hold tightly enough, we can prevent discomfort, failure, or unpredictability. But consider this: the more we cling to control, the more life slips through our fingers. We may succeed in directing events outwardly, yet inwardly, a quiet tension grows. Anxiety, frustration, and disappointment begin to accumulate because life, like a river, cannot be contained in our hands. Every plan we make is vulnerable to the randomness of circumstance, the actions of others, and the unpredictability of our own inner changes. Watts teaches that control is a mirage. It feels safe, but it is ultimately an obstacle to true freedom. Ironically, the very effort to control often causes more disruption than surrendering to life's flow. The more we insist on bending reality to our will, the more resistant it becomes. Our relationships suffer when we try to mold others to our expectations. Our creativity suffers when we cling to rigid routines or fear failure. Even our health suffers when stress mounts from the illusion that we can dominate every variable in our lives. Life, Watts says, works best when we participate in its rhythm rather than attempting to dominate it. True confidence and serenity come not from control, but from presence. When we accept that we cannot dictate every outcome, we become aware of what is within our reach, our own actions, our attention, and our perspective. By focusing on these, we act with clarity and intention, without the constant burden of trying to force life into a rigid mold. This is the essence of flow, living in alignment with life's natural movement, not against it. Letting go of control does not mean passivity or resignation. It is a conscious choice to engage fully with life, aware that uncertainty is part of the adventure. Each moment becomes richer because we are not weighed down by fear of the unknown. Challenges become opportunities for discovery, and mistakes become gentle teachers rather than sources of panic. In this space of acceptance, creativity, love, and joy flourish effortlessly. How often do you try to control things that are beyond your reach? Can you recall a moment when letting go of control allowed something beautiful or unexpected to emerge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Life, in its essence, is a river of uncertainty. No matter how much we plan, predict, or prepare, the currents of circumstance are always shifting, and the next moment is never guaranteed. Alan Watts reminds us that the attempt to eliminate uncertainty is a form of resistance against the very nature of life itself. We are so conditioned to seek security, to crave the illusion of certainty, that we often forget the extraordinary freedom that lies within embracing the unknown. Dare this: every great discovery, every act of creativity, every meaningful relationship begins in uncertainty. The artist cannot know exactly how a painting will unfold. The entrepreneur cannot predict every twist in a business venture. And love, perhaps the most profound of all human experiences, is impossible to control or forecast. Yet, it is precisely within this uncertainty that life becomes vibrant, alive, and unpredictable in the most beautiful ways. When we try to shield ourselves from uncertainty, we build walls around our own experience. We settle for safety, predictability, and routine, but in doing so, we sacrifice growth, adventure, and the richness of living fully. Watts often spoke of the paradox. The moment we let go of our desperate need to control what is unknown, we open ourselves to the full spectrum of experience. Fear of uncertainty is natural, but it is not a guide. It is a shadow that dims our awareness of life's possibilities. To embrace uncertainty is not to abandon responsibility. It is to act wisely and intentionally, while simultaneously acknowledging that outcomes cannot be guaranteed. It is the art of holding life gently in our hands, knowing that we are participants in a larger unfolding dance, rather than directors of a rigid script. In this space, every choice becomes an experiment, every risk a path to discovery. The unknown stops being a source of anxiety and instead becomes a canvas for curiosity, creativity, and joy. Embracing uncertainty also fosters humility. We recognize that we are part of a vast, intricate web of life, and our influence, though real, is limited. There is a liberation in understanding that we do not need to have all the answers or predict every twist and turn. In this liberation, we become more open, more present, and more compassionate, not only toward ourselves, but toward others who are navigating their own uncertainties alongside us. How comfortable are you with uncertainty? Can you remember a time when stepping into the unknown led to growth, joy, or insight? Share your experiences in the comments below. One of the deepest sources of suffering in life is the illusion that we can control everything. We convince ourselves that if we just plan better, work harder, or prepare more thoroughly, we can predict and direct every outcome. Yet Alan Watts often reminds us that life is not a machine to be fixed, nor a problem to be solved. It is a flowing, living experience, an intricate dance in which we are participants, not directors. When we cling to control, we bind ourselves with invisible chains. Every unexpected turn, every unforeseen challenge becomes a threat. Anxiety grows, disappointment festers, and even moments of joy are tinged with fear, the fear that something might go wrong. But in truth, the very act of trying to control life rigidly is a denial of its natural fluid rhythm. Life, by its very nature, resists confinement. Every moment is transient, every situation evolving, and each tighter we grip, the more it slips through our fingers. To let go of control does not mean to become passive. It does not mean ignoring responsibilities or abandoning action. Rather, it means understanding the distinction between effort and obsession. We can act wisely, make choices, and set intentions, yet we must simultaneously release the desperate need to dictate every outcome. Watts often likened this to sailing. The sailor cannot control the wind, but she can adjust her sails, respond to the currents, and move skillfully with the forces at play. Life requires a similar harmony between action and surrender. That letting go of control cultivates presence. When we stop obsessing over what might happen, we can fully experience what is happening. We begin to notice the beauty, the subtle connections, and the richness of the present moment, things that escape us when our minds are consumed by planning, predicting, or fearing. Control is a tool, not a prison. By releasing our compulsive grip, we invite clarity, creativity, and spontaneity into our lives. Moreover, letting go fosters trust, trust in ourselves, in others, and in the flow of life itself. We learn that we do not have to micromanage every detail to survive or thrive. The universe, in its vast complexity, has a way of supporting growth, opening doors, and guiding us, even in ways we cannot foresee. Accepting this truth transforms fear into curiosity, rigidity into adaptability, and resistance into peace. How often do you try to control things that are beyond your reach? Can you share a moment when releasing control led to unexpected growth or freedom? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Many of us walk through life with a silent critic perched on our shoulders. Every action, thought, or decision is filtered through this lens of judgment. Am I doing enough? Am I living rightly? Am I succeeding? Alan Watts often pointed out that this relentless self-evaluation creates a barrier between ourselves and the living experience. Instead of participating in life fully, we constantly measure, compare, and constrain ourselves. And in doing so, we miss the essence of what it means to be alive. That self-judgment is a subtle thief of joy. It disguises itself as ambition or responsibility, convincing us that we must be more, do more, or achieve more to be worthy. Yet, Watts reminds us that life is not a ledger to balance nor a test to pass. Life is a dance, a flow, a series of moments meant to be experienced with openness, not scrutinized for adequacy. Each moment carries its own completeness, independent of how we label it as productive or successful. But to embrace life without constant self-judgment is not to abandon growth or ambition. Rather, it is to cultivate a sense of compassion toward ourselves. Imagine approaching your own mind with the gentle curiosity you might extend to a child or a close friend. Mistakes are not failures. They are signals, opportunities to learn, and windows into the richness of experience. Success is not the absence of error. It is the willingness to engage, to explore, and to be present without fear of being found lacking. Watts often suggested that the ego, the part of us obsessed with judgment, creates a false separation between the real me and life itself. The more we chase ideals, the more we feel disconnected from the spontaneous, vibrant reality unfolding around us. But by letting go of the constant need to evaluate ourselves, we rejoin the stream of existence. We allow ourselves to simply be, to notice, and to participate without the heavy weight of critique. Embracing life without self-judgment is liberating. It allows creativity to flourish, relationships to deepen, and a quiet joy to emerge even amidst imperfection. We become less reactive, more present, and increasingly aware of the subtle beauty in ordinary moments. Watts often likened it to listening to music. We do not stop the melody to ask whether each note is right. We surrender to the flow, and in doing so, we experience the music fully. Life works the same way when we allow ourselves to exist without the constant commentary of self-criticism. When did you last allow yourself to experience life without judgment or expectation? Share a moment in the comments where letting go of self-critique brought clarity, peace, or joy into your life. Let's create a space to explore the freedom that comes from embracing ourselves exactly as we are.